Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. Chris and I are back as we fulfill our dreams with Wishmaster, directed by Robert Kurtzman. A demonic Djinn attempts to grant its owner three wishes, which will allow him to summon his brethren to Earth. This movie was made on a budget of $5 million and brought in $15.7 million at the box office. Woohoo! For B movie goodness, I've wanted to cover this for ages.
Yeah, I've never seen this before, so I appreciate you giving me the reason to finally check this out. I was surprised for such a movie that has such a cult following. 15 million is not as much as I would have thought. Granted, it's 3 times the budget, but still, for such a well-renowned movie, I would have thought it would be higher.
It's more renowned. It was one of them sort of I think it's more home rental sales and DVD sales brought in the budget.
Okay.
It was limited release in the cinema.
Like an Evil Dead thing where it just kept getting more and more popular.
And the thing is, Wes Craven stuck his name all over it, but it's a Wes Craven production. I don't know what this is where I think Wes Craven was starting to get a bit too big for his boots. And entered sort of Normie-ville.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Robert Kurtzman, he's originally a special effects guy. He did the special effects, like Freddy's makeup and stuff on Nightmare on Elm Street.
I recognize the name, yeah. I recognize his name from
yeah. Oh, you're splitting up a wee bit. Oh no, Chris is going wibble.
It was a lot of fun. It felt like a 80s movie. Like it just had that that fun. Oh, sorry. It felt like a fun 80s movie.
Yeah, it just had that
feel like a 90s movie.
Yeah. They were still getting quite a few movies in the 90s that were going for that sort of feeling vibe. And yeah, also with it being Wes Craven, he's a particular style, or Wes Craven being involved. So
let me see what I can do to fix that. Let me know when you can hear me.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just
get that.
Yep. You're getting a little choppy there for a sec. But yeah, just had that feel about it. Just good times. No nonsense creature feature. The CGI actually wasn't that horrible. That was one thing. Lots of practical effects, but the CGI they used, God's sake, there's worse today on bigger budget movies.
Right.
Oh, dude, your Wi-Fi there is terrible. Sorry, folks. It's technical doofers.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean it was 97.
97, yeah. You can see the style though. Just
Gotcha.
I think that 80s style is going to last forever. It just has a certain feel to it.
Yeah, I think the movies that do the CGI correctly. Yeah, maybe I should go without.
But will you switch your camera off?
Without the video, maybe that would free up some space.
Yeah, it seems to be coming through clear.
Yeah, I was hoping that would help things. No,
that works.
Okay, just as like a temporary fix, I thought maybe. Now I see why Flea does it.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of that's the thing with video and stuff. It's a lot of bandwidth and that, and you just have to get ready. If you seen the first year of this channel, our live streams were shocking. Just with the kit I had and everything else, it just wasn't working. So most of those videos are hidden now because
yeah,
nobody needs to see out there. cast in it. This is like top cast of the horror. Angus Scrimm in the narrator. So if you're not familiar with him, he's obviously the main actor from uh, the Phantasm series.
Okay.
Boy, he does anymore. Andrew Divoff, he plays the Djinn, obviously, and the alter ego Nathaniel. He's only in the
He was
first
great.
two, but he doesn't really have much of a career after that. So that seems to be like his iconic role, which is a shame because he's brilliant in this. And of course you got Robert Englund. Like who doesn't love a better Robert Englund and Ted Raimi?
Yeah.
Sam Raimi's brother.
We had some great cameos in this. This was like a horror lover's dream, right? Even Tony Todd at the end.
Todd. I completely forgot that he was in this movie.
Yeah. That was great. Yeah, you know
Werner, it's a Vern Troyer was in this.
Vern Troyer, right, from the Austin Power movies. That's how I know him. Yeah. He played the baby, I guess the baby version of the Djinn when he first came out.
But still, once again, you're getting like proper acting there and facial expressions and everything. You needed that. Do you know what I mean? That wasn't even like that's using what you're given in the world to your advantage. Playing
for sure,
a serious role. Like this is there's cheesy one-liners and stuff, but it's it's a serious horror at the end of the day. It's not like he's earning a comedic role. He's playing the Djinn just being birthed, released from the gem, and I don't know, man. Simpler times. Do you remember everything didn't need to be virtue signaled?
Yeah, I was gonna say there was no messaging in this. The female character was, I guess, what many would say is a boss girl. Is that the term that you do it?
Not really, because she wasn't. See, the thing is with a girl boss, right?
Girl
they've
boss,
absolutely no flaws, right? They've no flaws. They're insufferable. They are denigrating to everybody.
Right.
Alex in this was great. And you think about it, was like her and Josh playing with each other. There was no nastiness in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just she made wrong choices in life, with her partners and stuff and that. So that came through. She loved her sister and she was vulnerable, and she didn't just beat the Djinn with no ease. That's not a girl boss.
Right. And I think they go ahead.
That's the thing. Horror movie is always horror created the trope of the final girl. Right? That was a creation in the horror genre. And it was never done out of malice or preach or anything. It was just done out of love, as in who doesn't want to say it's all about emotion. Horror is one of the more raw emotional movies, and it knows how to play. Like that's why it uses sex, uses titillation, because it works well with the horror. We feel a protectiveness towards women, so who doesn't want to see the girl win, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
But there was always this almost girl next door. It was always the one that was like the girl next door sort of vibe about them. Tend to be the final girl, and they go through trauma, and they come through the other side, which is the whole point of horror as well. Yeah, you face the monsters, but even if you're not as big or as strong, or it's not an action movie where it's about being buff and all that kind of stuff. It's about using your wits, and she did. She used her wits at the end of the day. That's how she won. It wasn't. Do you know why you have the girl boss now, and they're like, I don't know, what do you use? About 10 stone. What's that, about 70 pounds or something? Like they're little tiny skinny things, and they're throwing accommodating stuntmen about the place.
Right.
It's just in reality, and they've never any flaws, and they've always got this snarky attitude to them. So that's a girl boss. It's been a creation of today. The girl boss is a creation of today. These are simpler times where you could celebrate people's differences, but just make them use. Fern Troyer, for example, is dwarfism, but it's not like this is an advantage. Oh, right, here's a perfect role. We need you for this scene. You up for it? Yep. Sweet. do you know what I mean? This is nobody had to get a big flag and go, I'm including this person in this movie. I'm so virtuous. Fuck that
Yeah.
shit.
There was no messaging. It was definitely the goal was just for fun. What I liked about this movie too is that it it found the right balance between comedy and taking itself seriously. Like there was the occasional comments where the Djinn would say, oh, the shit has really hit the fan. Like there was a few moments of levity, the drunken forklift driver, but for the most part it was not like a silly movie. Like for me, like the trauma movies, that to me is a little bit too much on the silly side for my personal taste. This was more like it. This reminded me a little bit of Leprechaun. So they took the idea of, a genie in a bottle, which is a
Hmm.
very, Disney, a very PC idea. They examined the historical aspect to it, which is a little bit darker, and then they really played that up and exaggerated it, much like the Leprechaun, which is
Hmm.
a very popular St. Patty's Day thing, especially in the States. Has a little bit of a darker history, and then they really stretched it out for the Leprechaun movies. This felt very similar. It struck the right balance.
But that's always been the nature of horror. That's the thing. Like, it's funny that it's almost been forgotten today. You get the old one that sort of goes back to it, but this is the problem why people are like not watching new movies now because even horror has kind of forgotten its roots of what it does. The whole point is to look at the darkness, look into the abyss,
Yeah.
and go, here's a worst case scenario, and then let the audience make up their mind and go in. And it's always about looking for the obscure stories or legends or myths and from all parts of the world because it's great storytelling material. And I almost think they're forgetting that today. Now, the good thing about horror, it always tends to bounce back to form. There's trends and fads and all that kind of stuff, and it sort of goes a bit. But the genre is too big,
Yeah.
literally too big to be swallowed by any one trend. It always has to revert to type because uh, horror fans know what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm learning as I'm been getting into the genre that it's such a broad spectrum of movies, and they could be, enjoyed on so many different levels. There's like the classic horror level or the animated horror level, and then there's the kind of the fun vibe like the Leprechaun or Wishmaster, and then there's some really hardcore stuff. So it's been fun to see you explore different aspects on the channel with different guests.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I set the channel up this way. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
Sorry, just drop me a wee
Yeah,
message.
yeah, yeah.
Just technical stuff in the background. Yeah. So basically, we start off here. It's set in ancient Persia. That the origins of the Jinn and God, like even just having the flip top skull, like that had to be the cheesiest sorcerer scene ever. Like that could have been from Willow or anything, but it was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, flip top skull. He's breaking out all the ingredients and stuff and flipping stuff. I'm like, oh my god, that's so much fun.
You know what? It's as much as it's a fun way to start the movie and stuff like that. It did kind of make me think, and they brought it up later on in the conversation when he's in her apartment. But isn't that interesting how we've gone so scientific based? And what if there was some truth to some of this lore and like spells and some of the mysticism that we had back in the medieval ages? And wouldn't that be interesting if that's lost, and is needed to defend against a creature like this? You know what I mean? If there was some value to the old way of doing things with the spells and the protective wards and things like that.
But that's the whole thing between science and magic, isn't it? Where does
Right.
science end, magic begin? Because magic
Yeah.
is the unexplained, and uh, I know. Actually, that's one thing fantasy don't do very well is sort of mix the two. Horror, I think, has done it better. Um, but yeah, the idea that rational thought only takes you so far, and the technological advances, and then sometimes you have to remember the old ways and actually.
Yeah, it's a interesting concept that it definitely, for a fun movie, it had me thinking about that. If there was actually like we always think that we know everything now, and we discount the ways of the past, but sometimes the ways of the past are better than especially the 100% science all the way.
Yep.
In other words, thinking that we know everything is the dumbest thing that we could do.
Which is one of the horror tropes, isn't it? Thinking you know everything and
Yeah.
disregarding the warnings and not listening to the old tales. The old tales were told for a reason, and the warnings of like this is the one of the oldest warnings, isn't it? Be careful what you wish for. It's one of the
Yeah.
oldest warnings since the dawn of time. It's against pipe dreams. It's all about putting pipe dreams aside and being productive in life. Because the minute you start just spending your time navel gazing, you don't actually achieve anything. And we're seeing that today. We've got a whole generation of navel gazers that just ponder is up, down, is left, right, is sideways, up, all this silly nonsense.
Right.
And nothing works. Entertainment doesn't work. We can't get the down to the basics, we can't get potholes filled in the roads. Everything has just, everything's getting more expensive. There's no productivity whatsoever because everyone's just going, But when you ask me to go lift that box and put it on the shelf, do you really mean that? We've got this sort of culture of everyone staring off into the, daydreaming and, oh, I wish the magic wand to be waved and all my problems solved. And you're like, yeah, that's not the way reality works. And
right.
the Djinn is just horror's way of taking that to an extreme.
Yeah, for sure. I thought as a horror villain, I thought it was excellent. It was not cheesy. He was intimidating. The actor that played him just looked evil. He just had that look.
He just had that classic look, didn't he?
Yeah, just comes right off the screen. Very, very believable. I would be scared. The guy I was yelling at was the medical student who comes into the to see the dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees that guy just standing there. I would have, as soon as I saw him, I would have ran. Like I don't know, he's very intimidating. Very good casting choice.
Yeah, and when you think how low a budget this entire production is, like when you think of all the top cast of actors on it, when you think of the actual effort put into the special effects, obviously the fact Robert Kurtzman is principally a special effects guy, like he's like horror's equivalent to Peter Jackson. Well, Peter Jackson was horror, initially before he went mainstream. But he's got that sort of vibe about him. So you can see him being actually hands-on in the workshop.
Yeah.
This stuff. Like a little thing is his like tentacles. The fact that they moved.
Yeah.
Independently, little details like that.
Oh, it sells it. It sells the costume. You're right. Those little details like that absolutely sells the costume. And I think, getting back to the special effects, I think it was used perfectly here. And the movies that do it the best are the ones that know to use it judiciously. Like less is more with CGI. If you could sprinkle it in here or there, and you do it quickly. But it's you've said this before. It's almost like a magic trick. The more you see the illusionist do the same trick over and over again, eventually you figure it out. But if you only see it once quickly, it pops.
Yeah, and the pace of this, like the opening scene of this, is absolute carnage, because that's what it's showing you. It's showing you the Djinn just ready to take control. the emperor is about to make the final wish, and the Djinns tricked him, and everyone in the court's getting ripped to pieces, and it's just the use of camera shots and more about the facial expressions and the the reaction to the horror is selling it as opposed to the actual what you see. Although I have to say that the skeleton in
Yeah.
this, like person's skeleton crawling out of their own body, that was great. But then the bit when it's on somebody's back, it's just a rubber skeleton attached to somebody's back, but it's just that quick that
Yeah,
you
yeah,
blink past
yeah.
that bit of the scene. So they put the effort in the effect of it, and then just keep moving quickly. And maybe I've just watched too many movies. Like, you can spot the fire suits a mile off. But what can you do? Like, you're not going to burn actors or stunt people. So
Yeah.
you need the safety, so it's understandable. But it's still, once again, it's just done for the overall effect. It conveys the message of this ain't good.
Yeah, and it wasn't perfect. Don't get me wrong. There were scenes where the CGI was done really well, like the opening scene where it was like 900 years ago. It was in like a pharaoh's chamber, and there was some party, and there was a sorcerer there, and there was a guy who got turned into the wall. He got like changed into the. That was awesome. That really looks seamless. But then there's the part later on in the movie where there's the security guard who gets turned into
into
like
the window or the glass door.
Yeah, and that was not successful to me. So I don't want to say it was perfect, but for 1997, I would say more hits than misses for sure. 90% of it was excellent.
Yeah,
on the CGI.
I've always said this as well. If you're having a good time, you find yourself being very forgiving. If you're enjoying yourself watching a movie, you'll understand the limitations, and you'll forgive things because you feel that the people creating it want you to have a good time. They're doing it for entertainment purposes. It's when
Yeah.
you don't feel like if you feel like you're being preached at or just being used as a fan, like it's another rip-off sequel, or it's a knockoff of Member Berries that they don't give it to us.
Yeah, member berries. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? You just feel like you're being treated like an idiot, then you're not having a good time, and that translates across on the screen. And then you start really nitpicking at everything. That's the difference.
For sure. But very fun. I can see why people like this the series. The one thing I could do a bit without, and this is just a personal thing, is the jump scares. There was a lot of jump scares in this. I know that's part of the fun of horror movies. Like, people go with their popcorn and they want their popcorn to fly in the air. But as an overweight older man, I could enjoy this just as much with half as many jump scares.
I didn't really notice it. I suppose because I've seen this loads of times, I don't even notice the jump scares anymore.
You're probably just desensitized because you've seen so many horror movies that you just.
Plus, this is one of my go-tos back in the day. I've seen this I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
And when you get the second one, the second one's brilliant. You'll love it. But anyway, we jump into present day then, and we meet Alex and Josh. And once again, this is back to your girl boss argument. Did she win the tennis match?
No. I didn't mean
was she
that
given
she
any
was.
special favors, or did she girl boss her way through the tennis match?
No. I didn't mean to say that this was a girl boss. I was going to say, if you were going to complain, that would be the only thing you could say, that the female character trope has been used quite a bit. But I actually think there's a reason why she was as able to withstand a lot of the Djinn's powers. And maybe we'll see if we can get to that in a little bit. But I thought it worked well in this case. I was going to say, the people that complain that it's always the smallerish female character that's able to withstand the big powerful evil guy. In this case, I think it worked because like you said, she didn't defeat him with brute strength. This wasn't a Jennifer Lawrence, shooting him with a bow and arrow.
That's just it. The tennis match scene proved it. Josh beat her. And he's going easy on her.
Right.
So it was real. You're almost getting told this isn't about strength of body or physical force.
Yeah, and
you're
she
almost
beats
getting
him
primed, by the movie to go, this isn't how she's going to win.
Yeah, and she beats him with her cunning at the end, her smarts. So, yeah, I thought it worked really well. I was not familiar with this actress, and I can't say I've seen her in anything else, but I thought she did really well.
Yeah, that's the thing. These are pretty much that's a funny thing as well. The better known actors are the side characters, the bit parts, the supporting cast. The main characters in this are pretty much unknowns and don't have much of a catalog behind them. Not big name catalogs anyway.
Right. Which I like.
That's another, because when you look at the Hatchet series, you see anywhere where you get like Tony Todd, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, and all them, all them guys. They are in this genre for the love of the genre. And they'll happily take a back seat or play a lesser role. Tony Todd as well. They love the genre. They always have. So they don't mind playing a bit part if it helps get a movie over the edge. There's actually, and I've been doing a lot of interviews over the last week or so, and that's one thing I've talked about is the cooperative sort of spirit of the horror genre, which does not exist anywhere else.
Right.
It's just a natural of thing that you make friends, horror fans, horror creators, and there's just this natural urge to help each other out.
Yeah,
if you look at other nicer, no way we always get told that we're horrible people and we kill puppies and we do this and we do that. Yet the nicer genres are all stabbing each other in the back, like as a norm, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I've come to see that. I think the people that you have helping on the channel, even like with the horrific tales, and everyone pitches in, and I've come to see that firsthand. It's just everyone wants to lift everyone else up. They're not trying to drag each other down, which is the biggest difference that you see. Especially in this day and age of social media, it's rare to see that kind of cooperative nature. But it seems
still exists. It hasn't changed in the horror genre. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anyone I've talked to, and there's people I've talked to, don't agree with everything on, and have different opinions, etc. But we still have that urge of, oh, you're a fellow weirdo. Yeah, people give us crap all the time. Do you know what? Let's just try and make our way and ensure fucking share something or whatever. The information and the help is given freely, without expectation, and just naturally. It's why I'm still a horror fan, and I hope it never changes. That's the thing that sets us apart. It's just that natural urge to push everybody on. Because I think there's a recognition of, we're a niche. We're not for everybody's taste, even within our own bubble, if that makes sense, because the bubble's too big as well. And there's little subgenres and people that, like, let's go back to the Scream debate, the hardcore Scream fans. I don't get it, but that's fine. Don't have to. Not everything's for me. Not everything I like. There's people absolutely hate this franchise. Despise it. But that's fine. You don't have to like it. I do.
Yeah, see, to me, I can see not liking it just because people's tastes are different. But I don't see how anyone could hate this, because again, the spirit of it was to tell a fun story and to take a common myth and kind of examine it from a darker standpoint, which is interesting to me. And like I said, much in the same way with Leprechaun, the idea of a genie in a bottle is such a cutesy, kind of upbeat idea. To take it to a darker, path is really interesting. And then on the flip side, not on the flip side, but in addition to that, it's also done in a fun way. So I can see not liking it, but I don't see how anyone could hate this.
I think it's more. I think it's the hyperbolic language of the internet. Everyone has to use
Ah,
hyperbolic language, and it's not. When somebody types about no, people can't just go, no, I didn't appreciate this. Oh, this fucking sucks, man. They always have to
yeah,
go to
yeah,
that
yeah,
base language, and you're like, okay, right, you're an idiot. And even if
yeah.
somebody went, oh, fucking brilliant, you're an idiot if you don't like it, right? You've just shown your arse, basically. But I think it's the inability just to have common courtesy that he takes it. But sure, Leprechaun got it as well. Leprechaun, people absolutely despise the Leprechaun movies, and that's the only way they can speak about them. Like I said, each their own.
Yeah, it's surprising to me, but you're right. They're out there.
But yeah, poor Josh. Like, I've never seen somebody wrapped up and boxed into the friend zone like him. Like, poor guy. He even had the
But
resort
you
with a
know what?
magic baseball cap.
The magic baseball cap. But I'll give him credit though. He was trying. He was not. He didn't surrender. He was trying to get out of the zone. He was shooting his shot, as the kids say.
Yep.
I don't know why they say that, but they do. So he was definitely trying, but you could tell he was. It was not going to work until the events changed.
Yeah. But sometimes also all it takes is a near apocalyptic event, and of supernatural nature to open people's eyes to what's important.
I was told many times in high school that that was the only way I was going to get a date is if there was a near apocalyptic event. So
Like,
I know exactly how he feels.
it's like, I'll wait, no problem. Oh God, I couldn't. I hated school, and especially the school I went to was rough, and the girls were rough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I left high school. I was like, started to go, oh, right, maybe all girls aren't like that. Oh, God. I was just, have you seen that show, Dairy Girls?
No.
Oh,
No.
God. Yeah, that's why I didn't date in school. They were like that. And it's just like, oh, God. Ugh. Ugh.
Gotcha. Yeah. I get a kick out of people who are so locked into those 4 years of high school that, and I think we've talked about this before, they still, just think that that was the most important time in their life and they can't, graduate from that. They're still locked into that same mindset.
That's a your country thing. Nowhere else in the world gets on like that.
It might be because I see it a
No, it
lot
is.
around here. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an American thing. It's like, even I was over there working. There was somebody like in their 30s talking about high school, and I'm like going, what? I'm just like, what? What have you done since you're 18? Huh?
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah, you're just like, bloody hell. That's. Nah, but we see this statue, because obviously in the scene, we see how the Djinn gets imprisoned, the ruby gets created, the Djinn gets imprisoned in it.
Yeah.
And we didn't need to have it explained to us that the ruby was inside the statue.
Right. Right.
We kind of guessed that. Funny enough, we're able to fill in the blanks ourselves and not be treated like idiots. That's another thing I appreciate about this movie. So we know that Robert Englund's characters, they're this precious Persian statue. You've already been primed to know, okay, this is where the gem's going to be. You know, it didn't have to be in the eyeball or in the forehead or something. You knew that the gem was going to be in the statue. It just made sense. We didn't need a whole scene where if this was made today, you'd have the whole scene of them making the statue and explaining, I'm going to place this gem inside the statue and I hope nobody ever finds it. That's the way storytelling works today.
But yeah, you're right. I think that's why movies on average today are about 20 to 30 minutes longer than they were back then. I think a lot of it has to do with too much exposition.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I think this is a perfect example of less is more. Like it was, we got it. We didn't need to be have it hammered over and over.
Yeah, and that's you know what I mean. It's amazing what you could do if you actually trust the audience and don't treat them like idiots.
Yeah.
But yeah, poor Ted Raimi. His characters always get annihilated when he appears in horror movies. His worst was Midnight Meat Train, where that did that bad CGI eyeball thing popping out. It was like ridiculous.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I gotta check
Oh,
that out.
oh yeah, we Cameron, Adam, and I covered that as part of the Clive Barker series.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you talk about bad CGI. That is terrible. And yet they did some great stuff as well with practical effects and a motorcycle helmet to give a new type of camera shot.
Yeah.
So they're really innovative in that movie with basically a girl wore a crash helmet and the camera was on it. So as Mahogany's beating her with the hammer, you could see it like point of view. And that had never been
Yeah.
done ever. And then the fact that she had a crash helmet and he had a rubber hammer, or sorry, yeah, rubber, mallet thing, he was able to actually strike her with it, and you got the effect.
Gotcha.
And then it did the horrible CGI eyeball, which was like, oh god, what are you thinking? Yeah, but that's always the thing. You see some practical effects well, like The Stuff is a classic as well, or practical effects is done badly.
Yeah.
The whole Marv scene, it takes half a minute, for him to get taken over by stuff. It's. But yeah, we'll have Numpty drinking on the job, getting absolutely hammered because that works. Drinking and forklifting.
They always say, "Don't fork drunk."
Yep. I remember I started driving forklift and I had an accident because people were yapping in my ear, going blah 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 while I'm trying to drive, and I ended up straight in the back of a car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Like for fuck's sake, people waving their hands and stuff and yapping at me left, right, left. I'm like, would you shut the fuck up and let me drive? And then, oh, I lost my shit that day.
I can see.
So I ended up having to pay for it.
Oh, jeez.
Lucky
Yeah,
enough,
it was
at a garage. It was a garage repairing a car, so he did me cost price to get it resprayed. The part of scraped.
Oh, that's good at least.
Because but he watched these numpties going around me, yapping in my ear while I'm trying to drive and direct me, and like, fuck it, just leave me alone, like a bunch of children.
It was a fun way to get the plot rolling because we had to find a way for the gem to come free, and a drunk forklift operator is an interesting and different approach to trying to jumpstart things. I did not realize at the time, probably because I'm so dumb when it comes to these plots. I didn't think that it would come back to be like the key moment, that she would make that wish at the end for him not to be drunk. That was totally out of left field and a fun way of doing it. There was a number of ways I thought when we get to the ending of how she could have framed that last wish, but that was one I did not see coming. And it was interesting that was the whole crux of the story when it started.
But we're also getting primed for this as well because when she's coaching the basketball team,
yeah,
she's telling them about being under pressure and in a sports environment, but it's relevant, which is why people should at least try and play sports. Because you don't have not everybody has to be an athlete, but everybody needs to put themselves under that sort of pressure.
I happen to agree. Yeah.
It's just part of the journey of being able to think. Like I played rugby, never anything professional. In fact, the last team I played for before I finished was shit. We basically lost every match. It was a celebration if we scored a try. We were that bad. But still, that whole point of putting yourself under pressure and having to make decisions when it's all coming at you.
Yeah, I think it's good for that. The teamwork aspect is a lot of good, having to, compete with other people for the same position and having to learn, to work together with people you don't like. I mean, there's so many positive aspects to it. Yeah, I thought that was interesting that her character would be a coach, because if you think about it, it doesn't really fit in. Like, her main job is working at this collectibles and antiques. You know, it's not like she's a teacher. Like, a teacher and a coach goes hand in hand.
But is this, once again, is this is a message that's been lost? And this is back to, you can put messaging in movies without beating people over the head, but this is about, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If
Right.
you're a complete person, so if your job is stale and doesn't have any creativity, like I worked years and all about box ticking and moving data and putting things, just really dry. My problem was I tried to bring my creative side into my main work, and it didn't happen. It wasn't that environment. People didn't understand me. And I was getting frustrated because I couldn't tie the drives together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So having another outlet that isn't your main job, and your main job not being everything, because what happens if your company closes down and you've put all your eggs in your career, in the
Right.
career basket, you've nothing left.
Yeah.
But having the outlet of doing something else and expressing yourself in other ways and growing as a person, that's not a bad thing. And it's almost being hinted here. Don't, her friends, like, her friends aren't all work friends. Like, even Josh, he's a different career. He works in a university. He's a scientist, but it's not necessarily connected to her job as an antiques appraiser.
Right.
Her coaching the girls' team is something she gets pleasure and fulfillment out of. So it's, once again, it's not about all her eggs. She doesn't go to all the parties, the smooze, just for the sake of it, with the same people and worrying about climbing the corporate ladder. She's actually a full person. And that's what the whole battle is. Look at the base people that the Djinn encounters, the one note wonders.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We see these people throughout this. Who is the Djinn able to exploit in this movie? And why was Alex able to beat him?
Yeah. Well, I do have a theory about that. Let's see if I could get this to work.
Hey.
I'm a little nervous with the bad Wi-Fi. Should we give it a shot?
All right, let's let's give it a shot.
It's a theory. It's a Chris. It's a theory. Chrissy Chris. Chrissy Chris. Chris's crazy theory.
We beseech thee, gods of the Wi-Fi. Yes, rub the magic book. Rub Horrific Tales Volume 2 to see if it gives us better Wi-Fi. Available in good shops, folks.
So I'm thinking, even though I haven't done anything to fix the Wi-Fi in the last 20 minutes, I'm hoping it magically fixed itself. But yeah, that to me was an important part of the fun of the movie, was trying to figure out why the Djinn had such a hard time defeating her. Am I still okay?
Yep,
You give me the thumbs down, and we'll pull the plug if it's not working. But so starting at the opening shot of the movie, it was clear that flames had something to do with this movie. It was very important, right? They start with the flames. It's right there in the title, and throughout the movie, there was a lot of scenes of cigarettes, of fire. So I thought that was interesting, and I think we'll come back to that as we proceed through a series of slides. So they start with once, in a time before God, light gave birth to the angel. So they're explaining the history of the Djinn. I thought this was all very interesting. I love the beginning, third of the movie. And the fire gave birth to the Djinn. So the fire was a very important aspect. Upon granting of the third, the unholy legion of the Djinn shall be freed upon the earth. Oh, the one who wakes a Djinn shall be given 3 wishes, right? That was like the premise of the movie. That was very important. The person that wakes the Djinn. Well, if you notice in the movie, was it Todd? Was it? What was his name?
Yeah, Josh.
Josh. Okay, way off. We can edit that out. But my buddy Josh here, he's actually the one that wakes the Djinn. Did you notice that? He's the one that's using a laser on it, and out comes the Djinn. So why didn't he get the 3 wishes?
Hold on.
She gave him the gem, sure.
Polish it first and rub the, basically rub the lamp. That scene happened first before he examined it.
It wasn't open. The guy was still, the Djinn was still trapped.
No, don't forget, this was, if it had been a lamp, it's taken a variation of the theme. So she rubbed the lamp, but this was a prison.
She was examining the gem, but she wasn't exactly like rubbing it profusely. If someone hands you the lamp and then you're the one that, rubs the lamp and then or burns the lamp and the lamp comes out, you're still the one that opens it. So I thought it was interesting. And I think the reason why is because there's something special about our buddy Alexandra.
Yeah, because even the other guy, I suppose he picked it up first when the thing broke. Remember, he wiped it to give to the. So it's passed through a number of hands at this point. I see where you're going. It could be a massive plot hole.
It could, but I think there's actually planned, and there's a reason why Alexandra was much more important to the Djinn and his plans than we let on. So proceeding to the next slide, her name alone was very striking to me. It was a big clue as to her importance. Her name, to me, was very reminiscent of the Great Library of Alexandria. And the Great Library, as we all know, is famous for being the biggest source of knowledge in the ancient world. There were over 700,000 scrolls that were lost in the Great Fire. A very small percentage of those scrolls were saved. So it was interesting that her name was, based upon that. And it's either, her parents were big fans of antiquities and things like that, which might be why she went into that field after her parents died in the fire, or she has some connection and that maybe she's actually quite older than we realize. So moving on to the next slide here. So again, her job is a procurer of antiquities, and she's obviously very invested in that field. And I think it's because over the millennia, she's seen these items firsthand. She just doesn't realize it yet. And I'll explain why I think that is the case. But we see her hard at work with her microscope looking at some of the rarer finds across the world. So the fire was a big thing. I think they kept alluding to the fact that this was very important. And we find out more that she was in a fire, Alexandra, and that was very important to her backstory. Cigarettes. Again, we're seeing signs of fire, cigarettes. This has a lot to do with the importance of the character of Alexandra. So she talks to her sister about what's going on, and the sister mentions, you want me to call Dr. Mentiglio again? And as we go further in the conversation, the sister says, you're imagining things just like last time.
Did you notice?
So she's having these images. She's seeing a lot of,
in less than 40 seconds, we get their entire backstory, the tragedy, the bond they have between each other, the fact that she's had to get counseling, the fact that she feels, her whole motivation, what drives her as a person, in less than 40 seconds in this movie.
Yes.
Today, that'll be done in about 40 minutes.
Right.
That would take 40 minutes to convey the same sort of why Alex is a strong person.
Yeah, 100%. It was a great scene.
40 seconds.
Aside from
one scene.
Yeah. Aside from the fact that there was no pillow fight, I thought it was a perfect scene. Absolutely. So she says you're imagining things just like last time. She said this is nothing like last time. And you've got to stop blaming yourself or the whole effing thing is going to start again. So we get this idea that visions might be some repressed memory that she's trying to avoid. Therapy, the nightmares, everything. So she's talking the same thing about these nightmares, these visions. And then she explains, I got you out of the fire. I couldn't get mom out. I couldn't get dad out. So she's distraught, but I think there's something more to these visions.
She said she didn't.
So,
and her sister made the point that she couldn't.
Right.
Once again,
hey,
40 seconds. Like I said, you that scene's about less than a minute. That scene. And all of that, you know, like I said, everything about her character is laid out. You just don't get movie making like that anymore.
Absolutely. But you hit on a great point. Yeah. You hit on a great point. She said, I didn't save them. And the sister said, no, you couldn't. But she said didn't. And I think that she's repressing the fact that she has power. She has abilities that she wasn't able to use in a timely manner because, you know, everyone has limitations. But if you notice, she feels connected to every death scene in the movie. We don't see that with any other character. Even going back to the scene in the beginning of the movie, we don't see the sorcerer or the who was the guy, the Sultan, the Emperor.
Sorry, the Sultan. Yeah, sorry, the
Sultan. Yeah, we don't see him having any connection. So there's something special about Alexandra where she could feel the deaths of these characters almost as if she herself has the same abilities as the Djinn. She's got that same connection to them. That's why she sees it in her mind. There's no other reason why she would. That's not anything to do with the wishes. She didn't wish for any kind of ability. The gem doesn't give her that ability, but she's connected nonetheless to all of these deaths. This was interesting. Did you notice when she comes to visit her friend? And I apologize, I don't have the name of the character in front of me.
Oh, the professor?
The professor. Did you notice the way this shot was framed? We don't see the professor. She says, "Hi, can I come in?" And she needs to wait. She was at this point, she was in a panic. You think she would have just rushed in, but she didn't, because much like with other supernatural beings, vampires, etc., you have to be asked inside. It's just a natural course of the horror genre that you have to be asked inside to have power. So I thought that was interesting the way that was framed, and then it gave more of a clue to her actual origins. So later on, when this guy, who was great, by the way, when the Djinn says, "As you wish," and all hell breaks loose at that party, did you notice that she was never harmed? A lot of other people were. People were dying left and right. This lady got turned into stone. But Alexandra, she was scared, sure, but she was never actually hurt.
Well, that was the same as because it's the wish's protector. So it was the same as the Sultan. You know, this was all basically it's the same thing that he tried with the first one, right? You can wish for all this to stop.
Right, but he could have taken out her legs. He only needed her mouth to say stop. He could have cut off her legs, cut off her arms, done a lot worse to her. But he seemed to be powerless to her. All he could do was scare her. He couldn't do anything more. And I have more evidence because I could see you're a doubting Thomas. Does anyone use that phrase anymore? So when her friend says, "Forget what our culture has made of the Djinn, forget Barbara Eden, and forget Robin Williams." Robin Williams was interesting, right? Because that was the very popular movie Aladdin. And what happens in the plot of Aladdin? At the end of the movie, the Djinn is freed. The genie is freed. And I think this is exactly what happened to Alexandra. I think she was actually a Djinn herself. And I have more evidence because this is a very... Let me know if I'm still coming in okay?
Yeah, it's still good.
All right. So we talked about how she was a coach. So she says that's when you need stillness. She's talking to them. She's giving them advice from her repressed past. I think she's not aware that she was a Djinn. I think she probably wished herself to forget and to be more human. I think this is what she wanted to be. But still, there's repressed memory. So when she says this is when you need stillness, time doesn't exist. Stillness, time doesn't exist. This is part of her history of being trapped in her own lamp or gem for thousands of years. This is why she's named after the Great Library of Alexandria. This is why she has powers. This is why she talks about time doesn't exist, stillness, because she herself was a prisoner for thousands of years or more. When she finally gets a wish from the Djinn, what does she ask for? After she asks to blow his head off, she asks to know what you are. Why would that be important to someone, to know what the Djinn is? Because she herself feels a connection to him. So her first wish is to know what he's like. She goes inside the gem. This brings back some memories for her because I think she herself is a
the
Djinn.
pop-up tent.
Yeah.
That's the really cheesy bit of the movie. Is just that, you know, that corridor.
Yeah. But isn't that an interesting thing that she would choose that as her first wish, because she wanted to connect with the Djinn because she herself has Djinnish roots. Later on, when she says, I wish Mickey Torelli hadn't been drinking on the job, look at her face. She's determined. She is not scared. She definitely has an inner power that is reflected in these moments. And then when the Djinn goes away, this was interesting, I thought. So she wished for time to go back 2 days ago, right? So every character then is unaware of what happened. And the only difference is that the Torelli guy is not drunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if every character goes back 2 days in time,
it's a butterfly.
How is she aware? Yeah, but how is she aware of the events of the last 2 days unless she herself was unaffected because of her magical abilities as a Djinn? That's why she knows what happened the last 2 days. No one else does. And she even winks at him. This, you remember Genie in a Bottle?
Mm-hmm.
The 1960s movie, or TV show rather? That was or Bewitched, right?
Bewitched,
With
that was it, yep.
the winking and the... Yeah. So again, this is some of these, I just thought of that in the moment. But this is a clue as to her magical abilities. This guy himself says, you're a dangerous person to know, Alexandra. He knows the reality. He's aware that she must have wished to not be aware that she's a Djinn. She wanted to be like a human, you know, much like Pinocchio wanted to be a real boy. He's aware of how powerful she is. That's why he acts the way he does around her. He tells her, you're a dangerous person to know. I could use some tips. But he says, wish on, child. He says, wish on, child. Child. You know, at the time, I thought it was a throwaway line. But if she's part of the same race as he is, that line now makes sense. Her final words in the movie to him, wish you'd never met me. She's compelling him to give a wish. This is part of her natural ability and upbringing. That is her phrase to him. This is quintessential Djinn 101 right here. Wish you'd never met me. That's it. That's the smoking gun, my friend. She is a Djinn. I bet Djinn see that one coming.
There you go, folks.
It's a theory. It's a Chris. It's Chrissy's theory. Chris's crazy theory.
Stable. Aha. Thank you, hype man. Where did my this thing's going wibble. It went wibble last night as well during the Alien game.
I hope that was okay. I hope that
I think
people could see the video to that. But I do think there's definitely more to her character. I don't know if my theory is correct. It probably is. But there's definitely
we're not having another Resident Evil series again. We're just like, shit, I got it right in the head. Shit, not again.
Oh, really? Oh no, I hope that's not the case.
No, no, that's no, because we got different characters, and then
okay.
There's 4 movies. The last one I need to watch again. The last one I find a bit disappointing.
Okay.
But up to the end, I love this series. I do. Genuinely love it.
Yeah.
As you probably say, I've watched it multiple times. It's just one of the ones that goes straight to DVD player or Blu-ray player.
Yeah. I'm glad you invited me to this, because this is one of the things I always heard about it, but I never really knew what it was about. And I enjoyed this one. This was cool.
It's funny the way you bring up Aladdin, because my first encounter of a genie movie was there's this series I collected back as a kid called Storyteller. And basically there were books. You got that every fortnight. You got a book and it had stories in it, and you got a cassette tape. I was like young to teach you how to read.
Yeah.
So, and the tape played, and then it was like you got a bang when it told you to turn the page. Do you ever have those things like that?
Oh yes. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
right.
The cassette tape and the book. Yeah, go hand in hand. Yeah.
So it narrated the story and stuff, and that's where I got inspired about narrated. That's why I love narrated fiction, because that was one of the things that I got as a kid, and it was things that sparked my imagination, and the stories they had were proper dark. Like my first ever horror story was a Goblin Rat, but they did a genie story.
Oh, cool!
And it was about basically a guy finding the lamp, but this time the genie's not going to grant any wishes. He promised himself that he'd kill the first person that freed him.
Huh?
And that was they're short stories for kids, but it was like
that's intense.
That's a flipping genie with like scimitar is about to chop somebody's head off. And that's the introduction. Like, whoa. It was the darker stories I always encountered before the Disney-fied version.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how.
I wonder if you hadn't read those first, if you wouldn't have, if your approach to horror movies would have been different.
I don't. Do you know what? It's interesting, isn't it? We could sort of pick this apart. The journey that you go on. Everyone's got a different journey in life and different experiences, and that's kind of where you end up. But I've not so much the horror journey, but the appreciating good storytelling. I see that more, and I just feel that the horror genre's done the better job throughout the years. And the more I look back at these ones, yeah, I'm sure there's action movies, there's other genres, but I think more so, I don't know, there's just a different mindset when you come into this genre. And I think it's all about that not being afraid of going to the dark places in your mind and exploring that. I think once you break down that barrier, you do change. And I think it is freeing when you realize that you can explore that, but not. You sort of know how bad things can get, or you can imagine how bad things can get. So when you deal with what's happening today or in your own life, like, well, is it that thing that I read about or imagined? No. Then it's not the worst it can be. And you kind of, that's what I take from it.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. Sometimes when I see some of these movies, like zombie movies and things like that, at the end of it, it's you're supposed to be like, I don't know if you're supposed to be, but some people find that they're scared, they're having nightmares and thinking about things. I'm looking at like, hey, you know what? Things are not so bad. I got plenty of food. I got running water. No one's eating my brains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in my case, they're getting disappointed. They're rummaging around there going, what? No brains? Yeah. So, like I said, when he's going through this, you can see the sort of baser characters anyway, like the homeless guy, like he first encounters him.
Yeah.
I just because I encountered someone like that. What was that about 2 weeks ago? Had this random lunatic come in trying to get money. He brought
What'd you
this.
say?
He brought it. Well, obviously, what do you think I said? No, go away. He brought
Yeah.
this doormat that had been like shredded to bits and trying to get money for it. He bought this like last year or something. Like, no. Then he proceeded to like throw things and try to start a fight. You're like, okay. First I was bullying him, then he's got meat on in and his torch and stuff. You're like, pick one. Either you're the victim or you're the gangster. I mean, one or the other, please. Then
Right.
we'll carry on as is. But yeah, just that homeless guy just reminded me that just some people are professional victims and it's comfortable.
Right.
So there's a base character, base needs, just live in the moment and just always led by their emotions. Don't have a thought in their head. They're animalistic in a sense.
What was that movie that we saw with that Sam Raimi directed where the
Drag Me to Hell?
The Gypsy? Yeah, Drag Me to Hell.
Yep.
I'm always nervous when I see like a bomb or something like that ask me for something. I'm like, I could tell them no. I feel confident enough telling them no, but I have to do it in a nice way because I don't want to be cursed.
Yeah, but even up there, it's only if somebody flips the switch. I always interact with people how they interact with me. So if somebody's like, "Yeah, do you have?" and I'm like, "Sorry, no, I'm broke because I am. I live in fumes. That's just the way it is at the moment. The things get into place, which I'm trying to build. Prepared to do that, but it's like, sorry, but you can just be nice to someone and tell them no and be firm. But the minute somebody switches that, up and they get nasty, well, guess what? You're getting a tenfold back.
Yeah.
I've always been a reactionary person. I don't go out of my way I just want to live a peaceful life, do what I do, be fulfilled.
Yeah.
But it's when somebody brings it to me, that's when I flip the switch and you see the other side of me, which isn't very pleasant. But we don't need, there's no need for that. There's no need for that, I don't see the point. There's people continually look for drama. What else? Nick, the same with Nick. Like, there's a base character in the same field as Alex.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Certain characters, I definitely wanted them to get their due, and Nick was one of those characters that I don't think he really did he? Or do we see it on screen?
It's his mother basically got blown up in a plane.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
He won $1 million, so the Djinn blew up his mother.
Yeah, which actually,
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably the worst one if you think about it, of all the punishments. So yeah, actually he did get his just desserts. Yeah,
the one that really felt bad for was the poor girl in the retail shop.
Yeah, right. I feel like I was going to say some of them I felt bad, and that's a perfect example. I feel like he kind of twisted her into that. Like she was just agreeing with him in a polite way. Like if someone says like, "Oh, I hate this weather," a lot of times you're like, "Yeah, it stinks." You never like, "Well, actually, I think it's pretty good weather." Just like being polite. So I feel like he was, twisting her words and kind of coercing her into saying that. I didn't think she really.
Yeah, but that's what that's the whole point. They're tricksters.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I felt bad for her character. I didn't think she deserved that. Yeah.
It's one again. This is one of the lessons. The Leprechaun does it as well. These old tales are when somebody comes. If something's too good to be true, it usually is.
Yeah.
And be careful what you wish for. Be careful when people are offering you something. Be careful what you say. It's all that. These stories existed so we could have a society. Think about what you're saying before you open your mouth. Think about what you're being asked. Rather than lecturing people, this is what storytelling's done, and this is what horror's always been a warning. You know, I know I've preached this ad nauseum about the horror genre, but that it's always initially the reason horror stories are told around the campfire is for kids not to leave the campfire because guess what? There's wolves that'll predate on them if they leave the safety. You know, that's why we built campfires. You know, the cave is not just for warmth, but to keep predators out.
Yeah.
And then the storytelling came of, right, rather than going, if you leave this, blah, blah, blah. So what you do is you weave it into a story, you make it exciting because an exciting story stays in the back of your head more. And the subtle tones of a message go in there. Once again, we've fundamentally lost the ability to storytell because we think we've done it all and there's nothing left. And when less talented people, due to nepotism and whatever reasons, are in charge of storytelling, guess what? That's why everything's crap. And
Yeah.
then you see the roll-on effect. Nobody's happy today.
Yeah.
There's no positive. There's no upbeat. There's no desire to create. There's no desire to better. Everything is just miserable because storytelling has been removed from the human equation, which is the whole thing that drives us and makes us what we are.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're
But
getting
that's why it's so
philosophical
fun.
here, but
No, it's true. That's why it's fun to revisit these movies, and I think it's a good lesson for people out there. Like, instead of saying like, there's nothing really great I want to watch, but I heard decent things about Revenant or Severance or what's some of those TV shows out there, The White Lotus or whatever. Like, it's not really my thing, but I guess there's nothing out there. No, you don't have to do that. You could go back to a 90s movie. You could go back to an 80s or a 70s movie. If you don't see anything out there that you think you'd absolutely love, try, doing what I did. See a movie that you've never seen before from an earlier time, because the way movies were presented back then is usually much more enjoyable than watching a current movie. There's just like a depressing aspect to the way most modern movies are presented, and there's a fun aspect to the way most 80s and 90s movies were presented. So yeah,
like Steve and I are looking at the 50s and 60s. The 50s had a positive bent to it. 60s was very sanitized, and the 70s are dark. The 70s are
were dark.
Dark era of storytelling.
Yeah.
Look at some of the darkest movies that were made during the 70s. That's the need, but they're still good. They're still that. Once again, there's obviously stinkers. You know what I mean? There's not everything's painted with a one brush, and when we find them, a lot of movies don't hold up, but the ones that do,
Yeah.
Funny enough, Tony Caro was mentioning there about the Charlton Heston movies back in the day. He was in some proper iconic movies: Planet of the Apes, The Omega Man, The Andromeda Strain. What else was low? He's quite a few iconic movies that are still watchable today. You watch the first Planet of the Apes and it's brilliant. It's still impactful.
Yeah.
Even the end of it, what happened. It's still a great movie. Look at the remakes they tried. They just don't have it because they're once again, it's just a rehash. They're not telling a better story. Even those modern ones, like they really ripped the arse out of them. Was there 4 movies? No, the current Planet of the Apes.
There's been quite a few.
Yeah, they really took it too far, where the original ones was just a simple premise and just showed the journey from beginning to end of the cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a reason why trilogies work. There's something neat about trilogies. Because it's all about the first, second, third act, but all they do is expand it,
I was just going to say the best stories follow the 3-act structure, and you could do 3 acts within one movie, but it does work really well over the course of 3 movies, because then that middle act, which to me is always my favorite. I feel like the first act is exciting because it sets up the premise. It does a lot of like world building, and that's what hooks you in. And the third one is always disappointing to me because my mind runs wild with, after the first act, how it's supposed to end or what I think is going to happen, and it almost never lives up to what I think will happen. Whereas the middle one, I don't have to get the backstory. I don't have to worry about how it's going to end. I could just enjoy it. So I always like the part 2 of the. So for me, I know you hate the word Star Wars, but Empire Strikes Back. But the second part is the best one.
Yeah,
Two
sorry.
Towers. All right,
Mhm.
I'll make it less Star Wars related. Two Towers.
Mhm.
That was the best one. Helm's Deep. I mean,
The Battle of Minas Tirith almost felt like a copy and paste,
yeah.
just because we've seen the Battle of Helm's Deep, which actually wasn't in the books.
Is that right?
Peter
I
Jackson,
haven't read
Peter
the.
Jackson thing. He put that in the battle just to for the sake of storytelling, but it worked.
Oh my gosh, did it? That's my favorite battle of all time.
But the problem is, he took away from the Battle of Minas Tirith, which was actually the main battle in the books, because he'd already done, he'd done such an epic job.
Yeah.
But still, like, I still remember being in the cinemas watching that, and the Manny's like the Rohirrim turned up, like mid act, and that just it still managed to do. It looked like it was more of the same, but then when the Rohirrim arriving and Aragorn coming in, with the army of the dead, it worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the scene. Actually, you mentioned the scene in the apartment with us, and this is where she has her Neo moment.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes,
Mr. Anderson.
I just love the way nobody else twigged on, and like watching that, and nobody twigged on that there's the clue right there, and Neo's just like, oh, like nobody else ever calls him that.
Yeah.
And he didn't instantly twig on.
Right. Yeah. No, this scene was great because I didn't pick up on first, why she kept trying to get her to say, yes, I'd love some water, or yes, I would, And by the second time, I did notice, but I didn't pick up on at first, and it was a great buildup, that like, oh, geez, that's him. He's right in front of her, and I thought she was in trouble, but again, he was very careful not to do anything too terrible to her, So
yeah, but once again, there's a scene of dialogue. Two people sitting on a bloody sofa.
Yeah.
And we get the whole game being played. And it's once again, it's not a game. It's not a they're punching each other and doing like flipping Halloween Ends has to be one of the worst movies I've watched recently.
I haven't seen that.
You see Michael Myers, he's literally picking people up, shaking about, squashing their heads with one hand. But when he goes up against Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, it's like the T-1000 and the T-800 just bashing each other through walls. So Michael Myers is supposed to be a supernatural, super strong character, and he's crushing people's heads with their bare hands. But when he takes on Laurie Strode, somehow she's able to resist them and push back, and they bash each other about and equal. It's odd. Complete. You lose suspension of disbelief because it's like, hold on, he was crushing somebody's head with one hand 2 scenes ago. Why is she still, matching him, and not just matching him, but pushing him back physically?
Yeah.
There's like bigger and stronger people getting annihilated. Makes no sense. But this is a battle of wills.
Yeah.
And it's an even playing field, so each can use their own talents. So you can go with it. There's no girl bossing. There's no any of that nonsense. It's just here are two characters facing off against each other. Both have their own abilities, and it just takes one to slip up, and it's game over. So you have that tension.
Yeah, but it was weird though. Like when other characters said, "Yes, I want to be beautiful my whole life," he turns her into a mannequin where her soul is now trapped forever. Other characters had very like innocuous, wishes, and it got turned into death basically. The fact that she said, "I want to see what I want to." How was it? Something to the effect of, "I want to see
to know you."
Yeah, I want to know you. He could have taken that and like sent her to like hell, or really taken it a lot further than the actual gem. In other words, I thought he was easy on her. He went easy on her.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of slip ups, like with the security guard thing. The security guard was actually winning. If you think about it, I want you to go away. And he's only meant to grant one wish, to collect the soul. It's only the person that awakens him gets the 3 wishes.
Right.
And I think there's something about, there's obviously because once again the gems pass through so many hands, so there's something more there about desire or whatever else, or familial, connection. But it's when he opens his big dumb mouth the second time, I think that was a wee bit contrived. That's only, like you said, it's only sort of contrived scene in this. Like, and that's not bad in an entire movie, is it?
Oh no, I had a ton of fun with this. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I say. When you get one contrived scene, but there's enough going on that you enjoy the rest, I find myself being forgiven. But if the whole movie was like that, I'd be like, nah, I'm out.
yeah, for sure.
It's interesting how he gets the knowledge of the 20th century so quickly. Like, how did he know Houdini, who Houdini was? When he only
Yeah.
discovered what cigarettes were, like at the beginning.
So right, and his dialogue, sometimes he had phrases like "the shit's gonna hit the fan."
Yeah,
How
20th
does he know?
century phrases.
Yeah. So in my mind, he has some idea of the outside world. Like he's looking at it through like like you're in a basement and there's like a tiny window above that you just can't reach to see out of, but you could hear things, and if someone walks next to the basement window, you could see things a little bit. That's kind of how I pictured it. So he's vaguely aware of what's going on around him.
Or the souls, as maybe being bonded to the souls, connected, giving him knowledge as he
Oh,
moves along.
that makes sense.
It was an
I could
interesting one
see.
because it wasn't immediate, like I said. We see him
Yeah.
at the start going, "Oh, this is the world," and then we see him sort of getting more and more. Actually, yeah, that makes sense. As he gathers each soul, he sort of gathers knowledge of the world.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And actually, yeah, because it makes sense. He only starts using the 20th century phrases mid the late movie once he's gathered a few souls and been in the world.
I
Yeah,
like that.
well, I've just talked myself out of a criticism.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
At the end party, I love the face off. Like when I don't know why this guy. I don't know why he wasn't in more movies or he didn't become a horror icon. When you
Tony
see that
Todd.
scene with him and Robert Englund, like in that scene together at the party.
Oh, I thought you were going to say before he gets inside with Tony Todd as the security guard. That
Yeah.
to me, that was my favorite part of the whole movie. That little
Oh, he went. Where'd he go? Wibble.
sorry about that.
No worries. We've done well so far.
But if you could hear me okay, to me that was my favorite part of the movie was that Tony Todd face off. His presence on screen is so powerful to me. And maybe it's because I've seen the Final Destination movies, but I just felt in that moment, right up until he makes that terrible wish, that Tony Todd has to like have some abilities or some power, or this is going to be an amazing battle. And then sadly, it turns out that he really was just a good security guard. But up until that moment, Tony Todd has such charisma on screen that I believed that there was some sort of presence there, and I thought there was going to be some sort of face-off, but alas, it was not to be.
And this is what I'm talking about with these sort of movies. Tony Todd's, iconic actor in his own right. And like obviously the Candyman series is what made him, but absolutely tons of stuff. But he's happy to play a bit role.
Yeah.
When you have Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, facing off against him, that's who the curator was, the one hosting the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, take your word of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When you've got him facing off against like the icon of the 80s and 90s, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, even the horror noob knew that one.
Yeah, and you've got Robert Englund going, ah, and run away, squealing.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
yeah, that
awesome.
was great.
Actually, he's been in quite, Andrei Divoff, Oh my god, they made a Cowboys versus Aliens sequel. And he was in it.
Huh.
Or was that a sequel? Oblivion, Cowboys versus Aliens. When did the first Cowboys versus Aliens come out?
Oh, the one with Harrison Ford?
No, with what's his face, Daniel Craig. Or was Harrison Ford in it?
Yeah, I think they both were. Cowboys.
I only watched it once. It was terrible.
It was bad. But what a fun
2011.
concept. 2011, yeah.
So he was in a Cowboys versus Aliens movie before Cowboys versus Aliens. I wonder if that was a remake.
Huh.
The Daniel Craig one.
Yeah, I guess it was. But that was a fun concept that just wasn't executed. But
maybe the 1994 version might have to be on the list.
Yeah. You know what? We got to put that on the list, maybe.
Yeah, he was in Toy Soldiers. He's been in quite a bit, but he's never been front and center. He's in the 48 Hours movies, both of them.
I could just picture the Chris's crazy theory for that. The Cowboys were aliens, and the aliens were cowboys.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to see scenes like that. I want to see these iconic actors in the horror genre happy to take a back seat and not be about ego.
Serve the story.
You couldn't do that today with the numpies that are running about.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like today they just wouldn't be, they couldn't handle it having their lights because they're so insecure now and not confident in their craft because most of them are grifters that are in entertainment now.
Yeah.
You know, I've had this conversation loads of times. But yeah, that whole scene, and then we'll have this scene of carnage, but we'll still have time for comedy. Like the Jack the Ripper was hilarious in this.
Yes. I wanted to ask you about that because it was a very odd choice for the movie poster and the cover. Like it's is it like it almost looks like a Dracula or Jack the Ripper. It's not even the Djinn on the cover.
I think it's just the way the shadow is, you know. I don't know. You can't really maybe they hadn't determined.
Odd choice. Yeah, it's an odd choice, though, right?
Yep. Oh shit! Kane Hodder was the guard in this.
I don't know who that is.
He played Jason.
Oh! I didn't know that either. Wow.
Bloody hell! This was a proper for $5 million.
Yeah. And special effects and different
locations,
different locations, and yeah, they did it. They squeezed a lot of value out of that budget.
Yeah. And I'm sure Wes Craven got a tidy fee. Well, actually, not really, because that would this has been purely made out of love. Let's be honest. There's no way, anyone got a big paycheck out of this.
No.
But yeah, I love we get the random explosions as well, just for shits and giggles. Like the statues just didn't go dead. They had to blow up because that's what we needed.
Yeah, that's not how time works. If anything, they should do like the reverse, right? Like,
make them.
They shouldn't explode. Yeah, but it was fun, and I like that whole scene where the statues came to life with the samurai and the different thing. Just the whole thing.
The Greek one was hilarious though, because that was obviously somebody just with painted makeup.
Yeah.
But once again, we're seeing modern technology being absolutely ineffective.
Yeah.
They're blotting away and nothing's happening. It's like, well, yeah, supernatural. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love, like I said, when she goes, it all reverts back. She's the only one that retains the memories.
Because she's the Djinn.
Yep. George is like, I'm gonna get some, yay! And I don't know how, but I'm just gonna agree. Yes.
I was happy for that guy. He deserves it.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't even like tennis.
It wouldn't surprise me. We've all been there. We've all done those things. There you go. No, fun movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep. And then I've an 80s tastic one to share with you next, which is the Critters series.
Nice. But we got a few more of these, right?
Yeah, there's 4 of these in the there's 4 of these movies. There's 3 Critters. 4 Critters? There's 3 or 4 Critters movies. I think there's a 4th
So
one.
we'll alternate like we did.
Yep. And then we're going to do Ash versus Evil Dead.
Yeah, I'm pumped about that one.
Yeah, so it's going to be like boing, like Dale and I do 2 movies, and TV series, do 2 episodes for streaming, then just bounce back between them.
Very cool.
Because it keeps, rather than just doing the one, beating the one to death, I think we'll find out with the Tremors, it was just getting the point of, oh my God, are we doing anything else?
Yeah. It keeps it fresh. You get more excited for it. Yeah.
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 There you go. Glad we got the technical stuff sorted out anyway.
Yeah, sorry about that, viewers at home. I will get it set up better for next time. Apologize for that.
No, it happens as well, because last night I got kicked out of my own stream. Had to go and reset everything mid-game.
Oh, that stinks.
It just happened. It doesn't matter what setup you've got. The gods of the internet are fickle beings.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
The technology gods as well, they're always in a constant battle.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Thanks as always. Oh, yep. It's out now.
So now it's awesome. I read a couple of them, enjoying it. So
And submissions are open for Volume 3, Serial Killers.
nice.
We're cracking on. So there you go. Just as we say now, until next time, keep updated with the channel, do the technical things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.